You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thank you for tuning back into this week's second edition of the Cabral HouseCall. This is where I answer all of our community's questions on all things wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging. And we've been getting some great questions in over the past couple weeks. So I think we're just about 2 weeks behind maybe on answering everyone's questions. Of course, we will get to your question in order that it did come in. One thing I do have to mention as well is remember, if you go to stephencabral.com/askcabral, it's a great place to submit your question to me to answer, but not a very good place for customer service questions because they're not going to be seen for about a week or two. So that you can simply email support@drcabraldetox.com or support@stephencabral.com. They both go to the same place. We're always happy to answer your questions Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And again, we'll get all of those questions answered. But if you didn't see your question answered for a week or so, it's because we don't check our Ask Cabral questions for once a week or twice a week when they get input into the queue. And the last part is, I want to be able to help everyone out there, but I get hundreds of questions every day on Instagram DMs. I get messages on Facebook. I can't even look at them. Like, to be honest, it's not that I don't want to help. This is where I help. So if you go to stephencabral.com/askcabral, this is where I answer questions I can't possibly answer. On a daily basis, I get over 500 emails, DMs on Instagram, and messages on Facebook if you combine them all. Even if I took 1 minute just to look at them and respond, that would be 500 minutes for the day. That's like 9 hours of straight emails without breathing or taking a break. You can see how that's not even humanly possible. So although I would like to, it's just not possible. And I hope you do understand that I'm not able to answer those DMs on social. So, okay, got that out of the way. Now let's get right into today's first question. It's from Jennett. She writes in, "Hi, Dr. Cabral. I sent you a message about a week ago asking about why I'm having a hard time losing weight around my hips, legs, and why I cannot get rid of cellulite on the front and back of my thighs. I realized I hadn't told you much about my body type and thought it might help in order for you to have a better idea of what's going on. I'm in my early 40s, weigh around 135, but I seem to have more fat than muscle tone. I've always battled cellulite and estrogen dominance. I went to a naturopathic doctor when I received estrogen dominance diagnosis, and he put me on some supplements that balanced me out, and that was about 2 years ago. But I noticed I do have extra weight on my thighs and butt, as well as a little on my stomach, muffin top. I definitely don't have all the symptoms I had, such as low thyroid, constant heart palpitations, night sweats, adrenal fatigue, etc., though I still experience a few symptoms like breakouts when I drink coffee more than a couple times a week. I don't sleep through the night or feel rested when I wake, and as soon as I lay down, my nose gets stuffy, and I have little to no sex drive. I'm a mesomorph, pear-shaped body type, and type O blood type, so I don't know if what I eat plays a role into any of that. And with so many diets out there, it's overwhelming to know where to start. Thank you for all your help. I'm so grateful for what you do, Jen." Okay, so Jennett, I'm happy to help. But the first thing I want to answer is the pear-shaped body type is typically the kapha body type. And you also said that you're a type O. And type O's are typically the kapha body type as well. So it's interesting that you consider yourself a mesomorph, which you could be. But if you're a type O and you also have a pear-shaped body type, well, there's at least a lot of the endomorph or the kapha body type in you. So do keep in mind that that is going to then be more susceptible to more of the cellulite, more of the estrogen dominance, more of the accumulation, like the water weight, the toxic water weights. So I have two main recommendations for you. If you want to do a lab test, I would recommend what we're calling like the weight maintenance or the weight loss lab test. You just go to stephencabral.com/store and click on weight loss, that tab. It gives you a lab test that shows your cortisol levels estrogen to progesterone. So if you're still having a normal cycle, you want to do that about 5 to 7 days before you get your period. It also tests your insulin, so it tests your blood sugar, look basically over the last 90 days looking at that. It's going to look at vitamin D. It's going to look at thyroid, TSH, T3, T4, TPO. It's an amazing lab test. It gives you the full spectrum of what's going on hormonally. All right, that's what I would recommend. Now, if you don't do that, I would simply do a 21-day Dr. Cabral detox. And then I would listen to the episode on how to wean off a low-carb diet. That will tell you exactly how much carbs your body is able to deal with. That is exactly what I would do. So first, you could do the hormonal-based test, which is fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. I review it myself, and then you get a 30-minute call with one of my health coaches to take you through my recommendations and for them to really listen to you and give you a nice little plan. And then you can get the exact recommendations there, which is a personalized plan. Or again, you could do that 21-day Dr. Ball detox, which again, honestly, costs less than the cost of 3 weeks of eating what you would purchase anyways, food-wise. That's exactly what I would do. So hopefully that helps. All right. Anonymous is up next. He or she is writing in asking, hi, I recently did your SIBO and Candida protocol with fantastic results. I'm now 1 month into your gut healing products, and suddenly I'm experiencing the severe stomach bloat again. I'm considering your food sensitivity test, but there's so much information from various trusted resources that these types of tests aren't reliable. I've done many elimination diets and just can't seem to get conclusive results. Is there something unique about your food sensitivity test that makes it reliable? As a side note, I just submitted my labs for your thyroid test. Thank you so much for your help. Okay, so if you got great results on the SIBO and Candida protocol, and now you're kind of off of that and you have a little bit of bloating return, you have to look at that as a food-based issue, okay? So this is what we have to look at. Are you now using the Candida, the Clean Gut Probiotic or the Daily Probiotic Support? Because you should. So you want to repopulate the gut. Now, the second part is, what new foods have you introduced? That's why when you introduce new foods after the Candida protocol, you have to always keep it at one variable. What new food did you introduce? Because that new food could be one of those things that your body's having a reaction to. Now, meaning like it's not my lab test. We're using an IgG lab test that's completely reliable. I don't even think it'd be allowed to be sold if it wasn't. And here's the thing. The only reason why people get conflicting reports on some food sensitivity-based tests is because they are sensitive to foods that they seem like they're okay with on a lab test. And that's only because a lot of even nutritionists, they don't understand that there are different types of immunoglobulins. On a lab test that we test for, we're testing for IgG sensitivities. We're doing that on purpose. The reason we're testing for that is because those sensitivities, if you're listening to this on a Sunday, you could have eaten foods on a Friday that you're now getting inflammation from, that you're now getting brain fog, headaches, skin-based issues 2 days later. And that's hard to figure out. What did you eat 2 days ago that's causing a reaction today? That's why we test for the IgG reaction. Now, in IgE, which means you eat a food, you get bloated, you get a headache, you get the brain fog, you get skin issues, hives right away, 20 minutes to a couple hours after eating that food. That's an IgE sensitivity. We don't test for that. The reason is, I always tell people, keep a little note tab in your phone. If you have an iPhone, there's a notes thing. Just put My Health. And every time a food or meal disagrees with you, just write down that meal. Start to write down all the meals that disagree with you. You're going to start to see correlations of the same foods that are in all of those meals that your body doesn't do well with. And that's an IgE reaction. You can have an IgM reaction. You can have an IgA reaction. So what I'm saying is, the blood tests are completely accurate. It's just there's different reactions within your body, and we're testing for an IgG. So keep going with the gut healing, but then look at it. Is it beans that causes you issues? Is it nuts that causes you issues? Is it nut butters? Is it coconut? What food is it that's causing you the bloating? Because there's a food, I'm telling you right now, there's a food. Maybe it's just raw vegetables, and you need a digestive enzyme, daily digestive enzyme, to help break down some of that cellulose. So again, there's always an answer. You're just going to have to tease it out with what you're doing, what you're eating, and I hope that helps. And yes, the food sensitivity test is spot on. Simply eat all the foods that you want to test for 2 days before taking your lab test, and you're good to go. And again, you don't even have to do that, but that's just what I recommend. All right. We are on now to another anonymous question. So let's look at that. Remember, if you always go to stephencabral.com/podcast or stephencabral.com/534, you'll get all of the things and links that I mentioned in today's show notes. Okay. So Anonymous up next. Hello again. I seem to have upper GI issues, reflux, indigestion, nausea, upper GI pain, that when bad enough, I vomit. This vomiting is usually brought on by large amounts of food or multiple types of food in one sitting. I also have gas, belching, bloating, but no issues with constipation or diarrhea. Blood and breath tests ruled out H. pylori, and stool tests ruled out parasites. According to your Total Wellness Tuesday shows on leaky gut, the only culprit left is SIBO. With most of my issues located in my upper abdominal region, does it mean that bacterial overgrowth is mostly in the upper GI, possibly stomach? Or could it be gallbladder issues? I'm seeing a naturopath and should put me on GI pathogen purge from systemic formulas, but also gave me 500 billion CFU probiotic packets with many different strains that I took for the first week during the pathogen purge. I understand that this is something that many practitioners tend to do but shouldn't. Could that possibly be why my SIBO seemed to clear up, but 3 months later, I'm getting these symptoms all over again? Thanks again for your help. You're amazing, and I deeply appreciate your passion to help everyone you can. Okay, so your question actually came in before I did a podcast on this. 529, the food poisoning fix. And then I believe it was talked about a little bit more on 532 this past week. Okay, here's the thing. A blood test and a breath test is not the best test for H. pylori because there are so many false negatives. So if the H. pylori was not active enough or it didn't react to the specific serum that you were given to bring it out on a breath test, you could show up negative for it. I do H. pylori testing for stool. Now, you had a stool test done, which is great, and that was done for parasites. Did that stool test also test for H. pylori? That would be interesting to check out because all of your symptoms, to me, say H. pylori or potentially, like you just mentioned, bacteria or yeast growth all the way up into the stomach. Now, keep in mind, there are certain types of bacteria that can move right out of your large intestine into your small intestine, okay? That's an ileocecal valve-based issue that causes SIBO. Then there's also a gastric valve-based issue where bacteria from the small intestine can move up into the stomach, or bacteria can actually get taken up or be accumulated from food-based toxins as well in your stomach and not be wiped out enough because there isn't the proper stomach acid to do that. So we have many different possibilities going on. I do agree that the Candida and bacterial protocol is probably the best way to go for you. Highly recommended. One of the reasons for that is that the last month of the Candida and bacterial protocol, a lot of people don't know this, is that product called Healthy Belly, which means it will wipe out the last weeks, which is about weeks 8 to 12, will wipe out a lot of that H. pylori as well. So that's the great thing about it is it's a full spectrum Candida and bacterial protocol. I can't recommend that enough. That is exactly what I would do. Or I would do the stool test where we test for the H. pylori. The other thing I would do is, okay, you want to see if this is SIBO, you want to see if it's Clostridium difficile, you want to see if it's Candida overgrowth, simply do the organic acids test, and that would tell you exactly about that. I think that answered your question, so hopefully that helped. Okay. Next question is from Tracy. Really short one, which is always nice when I get a short question too. Again, as long as you want, no problem, but it's nice for the short ones. Straightforward. I'm 4 months pregnant. I just listened to your pregnancy podcast. What daily protocol should I be taking? Thanks for your help. Okay. So that pregnancy podcast was how to have a healthy, happy pregnancy, pre-pregnancy, peri, and postnatal recommendations. That was episode 522. Check that out if you haven't listened to that one yet. And so my recommendations on that show, again, that show gave my recommendations. So I'm happy to repeat them, but that was a very in-depth show. That was 20 minutes long on what to do before you get pregnant, what to do when you're pregnant, what to do after you're pregnant. So check out that show. Listen to it again. That would be my recommendation. My quick recommendation is this. I would be taking a prenatal vitamin. We recommend the orthomolecular one. You can check that out. And the iron response, which is a food-based iron supplement. Okay. In addition to that, you could be doing the daily probiotic support. That's kind of the whole thing. Or if you would do what I recommended on that show as well is simply do the smoothie every morning with the daily nutritional support powder. Again, we reformulated that to be safe for women and children. So you would do 2 scoops of that every morning to get everything you need. At 4 months, you don't need to take the extra folic acid now. Again, we always use the methylfolate or the natrapathic. But you could, if you wanted to, and you would just take extra 400 micrograms of methylfolate. That's no problem to get. That's very simple. You can get it anywhere. And then in addition to that, I would still take the innate response, iron response it's called, and that's the natural food-based iron. What else would I do? And then I would just simply take the daily probiotic support to make sure you're getting all of your good probiotics. So when you have a vaginal-based delivery, that the vaginal flora, as well as obviously your intestinal flora, they share the same bacteria, is nice and healthy and strong. So that's exactly what I would do. And again, just check out that show for more in-depth recommendations. Up next is another anonymous question. Anonymous says, "Hi, Stephen. Could you do a podcast on low stomach acid and how best to heal it? I've read how it causes all these other problems that I've been dealing with: dry skin, adrenal fatigue, autoimmune, hypothyroid. I drink a glass of lemon water most mornings, and it's almost instantly makes my stomach feel more settled. But other than that, and maybe taking digestive enzymes before meals, could you recommend a good one? Is there anything else that can significantly help? And how long should it approximately take for this to heal? Thanks for your awesomeness." Thank you. Appreciate it. And so, yeah, straightforward. Happy to do one on rebuilding the stomach acid, but I can just give it to you right now as well. Really nice that when you wake up in the morning, you're doing your fresh squeezed lemon in water. Please continue doing that, but also add a pinch of Himalayan sea salt to that water. You could use Real Salt. The company is actually called Real. They're out of Utah in the United States. Or use Celtic sea salt. Use that every morning. Your stomach needs sodium, and it needs sodium chloride, but you're going to get that from your sea salt. And what else do we need? We need hydrogen, okay? So we're going to get that from other foods as well. We're going to get that from everything in the environment. We're going to get that from our natural water. So we want to make sure, though, we're getting a little bit of sodium in with that. All right, another great one to build up stomach acid is celery. So you can eat celery. You could juice celery. Celery juice is amazing for building up stomach acid naturally. So you could certainly do that with a squeeze of lemon if you wanted, and even a pinch of sea salt. So then you have a nice celery, lemon, and sea salt. That would really build up that stomach acid without a doubt. Temporarily, just like you said, what I would do is this. I would do a glass of hot ginger tea, a cup of hot ginger tea with your whole food meals. And I would do our daily digestive enzyme. And of course, we'll link up the enzyme in today's show notes. It is the very best enzyme available. Why? Because it helps with stomach acid. Besides the enzymes, it contains bromelain and papain, which are good for digesting proteins as well. Now, could you do a betaine HCl with a heavy protein meal? Absolutely. I use that for maybe 8 to 12 weeks, and then I wean a person off. How much should you use? Well, anywhere from 1,000 milligrams to 3,000 milligrams per meal. Start low. Whenever you get a warmth in the stomach, you've taken enough. And we typically take that betaine HCl about mid-meal. Again, I usually just have people do hot ginger tea during a meal, and then I have them use a digestive enzyme before the meal. That's usually enough. And then you can do that sodium, the little sea salt with your meal, but you can also do it with your lemon water in the morning. And you can do that celery juice. That was a pretty in-depth answer right there. So hopefully that helps. All right. Lindsay's up next. Lindsay is asking, "Hello, I had a question about 2 specialty supplements that I want to purchase. I recently heard Dr. Cabral's podcast pertaining to how to heal a leaky gut. I decided I wanted to complete his entire protocol to heal any problems I may have with my microbiome. From what I understand, his program starts with wiping out first the H. pylori parasites, yeast, and bacteria, and then begin repairing and replenishing with his daily gut repair supplements and daily probiotics. So my question is, can I use the Healthy Belly supplement to wipe out H. pylori and parasite protocol supplements at the same time? Or must they be done separately? Thank you, Lindsay." Lindsay, this is a great question. I actually answered the exact same question in a very different way. I want to see if it was you. I'm going to scroll back at my notes real quickly from yesterday's show. It was asked by Julie. Okay, I knew I answered it yesterday. So Julie asked the same question. So that was on episode 533. I'm going to answer it really quick again for you. It was a little bit more in depth maybe yesterday. And here it is. The Candida and Bacterial Overgrowth Protocol will help with Candida. It will help with SIBO. It will help with any bacterial overgrowth, and it will help with H. pylori. It does work on parasites, but from a different perspective. A real parasite protocol, though, contains more of the black walnut, the cloves. So what I recommend is this. If you want the absolute perfect protocol to wipe everything out of the gut, you're going to do the 6-week parasite protocol. It's so simple. Again, these supplements are only taken upon waking, basically before you leave the house, upon waking at breakfast, and then at dinner time before bed. That's it. So you don't even have to take anything during the day. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. Okay. So parasite protocol for 6 weeks. Intestinal cleanse for 1 week. That'll wipe everything out, all that dead die off, all of that. And then you'll complete the 12-week candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol. That's it. Like that will wipe out the parasites. That will wipe out the candida. It will wipe out the SIBO. It will teach you how to eat well, how to be healthy. And then you'll simply use, like you just said, the healthy gut support powder. And then you will use the daily probiotic support. That's it. Like that's really it. It really is simple. It's straightforward. I would say more importantly, it teaches you how to rebuild your gut, and it teaches you how to eat a healthy, clean diet, and it teaches you what foods are agreeable to you and which ones aren't. So, Lindsay, that is exactly what I do, and I hope that answers your question. Okay, we have time for one more question today on the Cabral House Call, part 2 of the weekend, and it is from Lindsay again. Okay, let's see. Maybe it's a different question. Well, it could also be a different Lindsay. Hi, Stephen. I'm writing back as I feel I've received different responses from yourself and the support group, and I want to try to clear things up. I have the Candida protocol at home. Really need to start. I wrote in a week ago if I could continue taking my supplements as I've recently been through some lab testing for my hormones. Okay, it's a different question. Good. Taking the Douglas B complex, taking the DHEA, taking the glutathione, taking the zinc picolinate, taking the indole 3-carbinol, taking the support email. I contacted, said absolutely no supplements can be taken while doing the protocol. However, you on the house call said it's all fine to take. The reason I ask, for example, there are foods to avoid like cauliflower on the list when doing the 12-week plan, but it is in the I3C and daily fruit and vegetable blend I want to continue with. I also want to continue with the maca powder, acai, flaxseed, etc. Please clarify before I begin. I'm sorry for writing in again, but I'm sure you can appreciate that with the money and effort that goes into these protocols. I want to make sure I'm doing it right. I'm excited to get started. Thanks. Okay. So, Lindsay, you can absolutely use those supplements that you're taking. Absolutely fine. All supplements are typically okay during the Candida protocol, except, like our support team said, anything that's a prebiotic that might be feeding the yeast and bacteria that we're trying to wipe out. But it's different because when you're taking an extract, it's not the same. And when it doesn't contain the sugar, it's not the same. So you can still use the greens powder, our daily fruit and vegetable blend. That's okay. But test that as a separate variable. Just make sure it is okay with you. And you can still use the I3C, even if it contains the sulforaphane or any of these extracts. That's okay because it's not the fiber from the thing. You can't take the fiber with it, okay? So you'll want to be careful adding in the flaxseed initially, but the maca powder and the acai are absolutely fine. You're okay. The B complex is fine. The DHEA is fine. The glutathione is fine. The zinc picolinate is fine. All of those are totally fine. So you're okay. Take my advice. So again, my support team is always doing their best to help. If you have a specific question for me, of course you can write in, but always know that if you did ask, can you take it for the first 2 days of the Dr. Ball detox, which are the shake fast days where you're doing 4 shakes each day, that's not okay to do during those days because that's a relaxation phase during those detox days. But with your longer term Candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol, the products that you're taking are absolutely fine. So do feel free to continue on with those and enjoy those without a doubt. Let me answer one more question really fast. Okay. Actually, you know what? I don't want to answer any questions fast. So I'm a little cliffhanger there. Carol, you are up starting next week. You'll be first. And your question is on the difference between steam and saunas. I want to give every question the time it deserves. So Carol, you will be up first next week. Everyone, if you haven't had your question answered, it will be coming up in the next week or two on the Cabral House Calls. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of your listens. I hope you've had an amazing weekend, and I look forward to speaking with you tomorrow on our Motivation and Mindset Mondays. It's going to be a great show. Tune in then. Take care, everyone. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.